radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Welcome, everyone. A very special Friday night edition of Fade to Black. Today is Friday, April 28th, 2023. And tonight's show is brought to you by the film Accidental Truth. It is now streaming on Amazon and all platforms, and the link for it is below. You need to go and check it out. And I've got to say, my 8 seconds in the film just makes the entire thing. Those 8 seconds are gold. Gold. Go and check it out. It's a great movie, directed by Ron James. All right, tonight, very special guest, Mick West joins us all the way over from the United Kingdom. We're going to be talking about AARO, the AARO hearing, and some other things too as well. Of course, it is going to be UAP and UFO centric. He is an American science writer, skeptical investigator, and retired video game programmer. He is the creator of websites Contrail Science and Metabunk, and he has also appeared on different media outlets, including CBS, the BBC, CNN, Radio New Zealand, and Scientific American as an expert conspiracy analyst and science communicator. And I'm very excited about tonight's conversation with Mick. And before I go through his entire CV, it's there. You can go and check it out, because I just want to get Mick on the show and say, Mick West, what is going on? How you doing, man?
Jimmy, glad to be here. I'm not actually joining you from the United Kingdom, though. I left the United Kingdom like 23 years ago or so. And
my producer said that to me, and I was like, and I couldn't get it out of my head, man.
Yeah, I'm up over in Sacramento, California, Northern California. So.
Why? See, I knew. I obviously you and I talk, and I thought Mick moved to the UK. And this thing and timing. So anyway, it doesn't matter. Welcome back to the United States.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I was just in England a couple of weeks ago. I went to visit my family, so I might have reacquired a bit of my Britishness along the way.
I'm going to be there in August, and right. I'm very excited. I'm going to be speaking in London, and then heading up to Manchester. So I'm going to be there for about a week, and I'm speaking in Manchester too as well. And I'm gonna squeeze Avebury in somehow and try to do a couple of things. But aside from London and Manchester, I got to get to Avebury. I just have you been there?
To where? Where is that?
Avebury, the circle, the stone circles.
Oh right, yes. No, I've been to Stonehenge.
Right.
Yeah, the big one, but there's a whole bunch of them everywhere. You know, when you grow up, there's always like a local stone circle somewhere that the local witches do their little things in. Or the school kids go and smoke at the stone circle.
You know, I've thought about that. If you buy a piece of property in Britain, especially out in the country somewhere, you've got history on that property. You just need to go and find it. It's there.
Thousands of years sometimes. Yeah,
you've got something there. Now, okay, I want to start off the show. I'm going to make a general statement, if you don't mind, Mick. But sure. I want to say this. A few months ago, last year, I shot a video, and it was pretty incredible. And so I spoke about that video on the show, and finally I got around to editing it down, because it was, an hour long, and I trimmed it up, popped it up, and I think I put a title on it like Crazy Ass Night in Palmdale or something. Yeah. And I posted it up. And so I want everybody to know what happened. And I lead by example. So I want all of you to listen to me very closely. So I posted the video. And it was a matter of minutes until I got a DM or email or DM from Mick. And And Mick says, Jimmy, can you give me some more information about this? I said, absolutely. What do you need? And then he writes me back, could you send this? I said, absolutely. Boom. Timestamps. Okay, Jimmy, can you send me the Yes. And this went back and forth between Mick and I for a couple of days, maybe 3. And he's zoning in. He's figuring stuff out. But it's called working together. It's called communication. And I felt what was going on, and I knew it. I had to brace myself for it a little bit. I knew what was going on, but I didn't care. It's about confirmation of things, and now it was an incredible video. There's no doubt about it. It's a great video. I captured some really cool stuff. Yeah, but not everything is a UFO. And so when Mick posted his final analysis, I posted, I can't remember exactly, Mick. I apologize for that. But I said something like, man, I don't buy everything that Mick is selling. And he has debunked my shit. But, man, what's wrong with that? And that's the way it should be, Mick. Why is it that people don't want their blinders messed with, that they just want to stay in one lane, and if anything messes with that, they lose their minds? Yeah. Why can't we just get along?
I think a lot of people are very defensive about the subject. I think part of that is because the subject, especially for people who are experiencers, people who have seen something or experienced something, for those people, they're kind of used to not being believed. And they know that a lot of people will think that, what happened to them from their perspective was very, very unlikely and probably not true. Like it was probably a hallucination or something like that. They know that that's what most people believe. And yet from their perspective, they know what they saw. And so it's when someone comes along and says something like, it might not be that, then they get very defensive. And that also applies even to related things. Like say, someone else saw a UFO, like you see a UFO, and I come along and I explain what it is. This still makes people feel threatened because it's just like I'm one step away. Here's Mick West kind of knocking at the door here. Maybe he's going to like do me next or something like that. But yeah, that's
right.
That's not what I'm about. I really like cases like your case because it had a lot of information. We had this great video. We knew what location you were at and exactly what time it was and what direction you were pointing in, because you've got this nice aligned house which points due north. And so we had this perfect position that we could then use to correlate it with these satellites, which is what it ended up being. But if it's just somebody's personal story, I'm not going to debunk that. I'm not going to come along and say you didn't see what you say you saw, because I've got no idea. I wasn't there.
Right.
I might have my suspicions about what it was, but I can't tell what it was or what it wasn't. So I generally don't even address those, other than that's your experience and I can't really address your experience.
Have you okay, I know what I want to ask. Let me back up.
Okay.
What you analyzed with what I sent you was excellent, right? But that doesn't change why I am here. Right? You're not fundamentally changing my mindset with that. Sure. And that's what people need to understand. They didn't know that you and I had this communication going back and forth behind the scenes on this, and that I wanted the answers, right? They didn't see that part of it. They just saw you, debunking Jimmy Church's video, right? But here's the thing. I have seen in the middle of the day with a group of people, a 500-foot tall, shaped like a beer can, upright, spinning with this silver thing. It was insane. Mm-hmm. And it lasted about 15 seconds. Clear blue sky, and then just disappeared in front of everybody. Now, that is, when you see something like that, no matter what gets debunked, it doesn't change what I saw, which was absolutely crazy. Have you had that sighting, a daylight, not night, not lights, a daylight thing that you went, okay, that's not ours? Have you had sighting?
Not that dramatic, certainly no. I have seen things in the daytime that, they're not very interesting, but there's certainly things that I didn't know what they were. One in particular, I remember I was just basically looking straight up in the sky, almost directly above my head, and I saw what appeared to be like a white object kind of hovering straight up, and it looked like it was really, really high, like 40,000 feet or so, and just hovering there. And I don't know what it was. I mean, it might have been something like I saw Venus in the daytime or something like that. So I went back in the house and got my binoculars and then looked up and it was gone. But that's probably the most dramatic UFO type thing that I've seen.
Well,
but
you can take Venus off of the. You can take Venus off of that. What did you think? That's actually a pretty good sighting.
Yeah, well, it sounds good, but it was really just a little white dot. I mean, it could have been a bird hovering or something like that. I mean, I don't know. It didn't seem to be moving, which is what was interesting to me. I think I was like watching a plane overhead with like a small camera, and then I just saw this little white dot, and I stopped and looked at it. So it's a UFO, but it's also it's in the low information zone. It's too far away to tell what it was, and perhaps had I managed to see it again with my binoculars, I might have been able to see what it was. It might have just ended up being a bit of a brighter white dot, which would make the kind of like the star or planet explanation a bit more likely.
Right.
But, I don't know. So, UFOs are real in the sense that we see things in the sky. UAP are real. There are phenomena we see in the sky that we can't identify. But that doesn't mean that they are something like non-human intelligence. It just means like right now we can't identify it. Now your thing sounds a bit more interesting, like a big spinning cylinder.
That was crazy. Just imagine this 500 feet tall going across the sky, and it was tremendous. And
it vanished.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I didn't see it vanish. That was I saw it appear. And what had happened, I've told the story so many times, so I'm going to give you the very short abridged version. I'm sitting there with a pair of gnarly 3-foot binoculars on a tripod, and I'm looking at the top of this mountain, and the mountain is 14 miles away, right? And it's there. And I'm looking at the birds. I'm just, and I've got Steve Murillo sitting directly next to me. We're at a picnic table, and I've got about 30 friends around us. Some of them were playing basketball, and we were having fun, right? Anyway, so I'm looking at the mountain, and I see the peak in the binoculars. I'm looking at the peak, and I'm, and at that moment, from behind the mountain, not coming in from left to right, from behind the mountain comes this thing, and it's 14 miles away, and it's and I freak. And I'm looking at it, just doesn't make any sense to me. It was black, and it had like a chrome, like dull aluminum silver top and bottom. The sun lit it up perfectly. It was crystal clear, moving very slowly, and it's spinning. And I jump up and I yell, video, 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 pictures, pictures, pictures. And I come back and people started shooting pictures and shooting video. I came back and sat down and looked at it in the binoculars again. And I take it all in for about 5 seconds. I just look at it from top to bottom, and it's huge. It's big. And then I look at it with my naked eye. I come off, this like 10 seconds later. I come off, I look at it with my naked eye. It's like a little, but you can see it spinning and stuff, even though it's very far away. But in the binoculars, it's like this. And then I come back, and as I come back to the binoculars, Steve Murillo sitting next to me goes, "It's spinning. It's spinning. It's spinning. It's gone." What? And I thought we were going to see it, Mick, for the next hour in the blue sky because it was moving so slow. And I went back in my binoculars, and it just disappeared. Poof.
Yeah, and that's the type of case that I don't like. Not because it's disconcerting or anything. I don't like it because I can't get to grips with it. I can't. There's not evidence that you can actually. I guess you could say what's the location, and you can get things like that.
I've got all of that. The thing is, I got some video. The object's not in the video, because the person taking the video didn't know where to point, right?
Right.
But you can hear us all talking about it and screaming
Yeah.
and describing it. Yeah. So that's all in the video. But if you were sitting at that picnic table and you witnessed something like that, does that change your worldview?
Yeah, well, it depends what it is. I think, I'm the type of guy who tried to figure out what it was and consider a whole bunch of possibilities, which I'm sure you've done as well. But if you can't figure out what it was and you're left with something like a giant spinning tube, it's kind of very difficult to reconcile that with the world. But I think I would probably end up happening is I would probably have a few tenuous hypotheses, like perhaps it was someone was flying a giant tube kite and we just had a weird perspective thing where it looked like it was coming over the top, and then you'd be like, no, it definitely came over the top of the mountain.
It came from behind. It came from behind. It was, and you got to remember, we were looking at it from 14 miles away, and you could still 14 miles, and you could see it with the naked eye.
That was very, very big.
It's huge.
And you think that something that large would be visible to a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Presumably on the other side of the mountain, there'd be some people as well, or even people climbing the mountain.
Mick, and that's the issue here.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on?
Yeah.
We all thought the same thing. Well, everybody for miles just saw that. There was nothing. And thankfully, I had 30 friends all standing there in awe watching this thing, because that's the holy grail. Right. That's the middle of the day, sunlight. This is not at night. This is not night vision. This isn't Mick West and Starlink. No, it's not that. Right? This is right there, lit up by the sun, and it was crazy. I've often thought, somebody like you, or what would Neil deGrasse Tyson have to say if he saw something like that?
Well, I think like the very fact that only your group saw it, or at least only reported seeing it, is perhaps a clue. I mean, it seems like there's only a couple of ways that could go. Like either it's some kind of weird phenomena that only wanted to be seen by your group, or was perhaps in a situation where it could only be seen, it's a real thing, but it's only seen through a certain like tunnel of the air or something because of the way it warps space and time, or it was some kind of illusion. Like there was something that wasn't actually quite so big, and from your perspective, you just happened to be in the right spot to see it at the right time, while somebody's solar balloon or kite or whatever it was flew over, and you all got the same illusion at the same time. But again, I don't know which one of those is the right one.
No, it's and so back to, I guess, my point that no matter what, not everything is a UFO. It's simply not. Simply not. What we saw that day was friggin' nuts. And I can tell you, I don't know what it was, Mick. I don't. I certainly don't. But this is what drives me. And I'm okay with listening to everybody's input on everything, like you and the work that you do. I don't mind it. I appreciate it. And so there you go. All right. So, but you haven't seen it. See, I was hoping you would tell me that you haven't seen anything, and I would say, well, that explains everything about Mick West.
Well, I haven't seen anything amazing. People always ask me what's the most amazing UFO video you've ever seen, and that you couldn't explain. And there's thousands of videos that I can't explain just because they're like that white dot that I saw. They're just something in the distance, and you can't tell what it is. I haven't seen any ones that like are amazing, even as amazing as your description. Like there, if you had a 4K video of this thing coming over the top of the mountain, that would be pretty amazing. But such videos don't seem to exist.
Well, it's the same thing. Just like everybody, when somebody tells me their experience and their sighting, and I ask them the question, right? You take a picture, shoot a video. No. Did I? No. The whole event was 15 seconds long.
Right.
And 10 seconds of it was me jumping up and down, yelling for video and stuff. And by the time I even got close to getting my mind straight, it was gone.
Yeah. But you were so close. I mean, it's not like every single UFO encounter is like 3 seconds and there's no chance of getting it. You could theoretically quite easily have either had your camera out at that time or like, you know, managed to do it in the 15 seconds. I was once in my backyard and I happened to have a camera. I had my big, you know, 500mm camera, which is over there somewhere. And a U-2 flew over my house, which is very unusual. I've never even seen a U-2 before. You know, the U-2 spy plane with the long, skinny wings.
I see them every other day.
Yeah, well, you live with somewhere where they are, but
they're stationed right here.
I was like, oh my God, a U-2. What? And then I was like, with my big camera. I don't think it's impossible that at some point, you know, if these UFO encounters that people describe like yourself are happening, and you were in a situation where you were actually looking for UFOs at the time, and you had cameras.
No. This is nature.
Okay.
Yeah,
but you were observing. You had like camera equipment. You had binoculars.
I had the binoculars because I had this giant mountain sitting in front of me, and that's why they were there. So
yeah.
But So Mick is debunking my experience now.
No, it's not your experience. I'm just trying to extrapolate it to the broader phenomena. Like, what does it tell you that there are all these eyewitness accounts, but you know we can't get video or good photos of them, and we're always just so close. Like, you know, I get the camera out and I just don't press the button. I mean, that happened to me once. I was outside walking the dog, and it was dark, and I saw this enormous shower of golden fireballs like shoot across the sky above me, and I was like, oh my God. And then I get the camera out, got my camera out, you know, pressed the button, followed it across the sky. It was amazing, most amazing thing I've ever seen. And then it went over the horizon, and I was like, didn't press record.
Oh, I hate that. Even worse than that is you think you've hit the video button, and you're watching the video the whole time.
Yeah, I was watching it. I was looking in my camera at this amazing sight of.
And that's so much, man. And then you look, and that square's not lit. Oh man. Okay, let's talk about AARO for a second.
All right.
I was asked today. And I know that this is going to make some people upset, and so many out there have put their eggs in one basket, and they're not really analyzing the situation. But I was asked today on another program, Christina Gomez, what I thought about the hearing. And I said, okay, I'm going to sum it up just a few words. Kirkpatrick doesn't give a rat's ass about ET. And his job and AARO's mission has nothing to do with the search for extraterrestrial life. That's it. And the community needs to disengage from that thought process, because if they're looking for him to do that, you're wasting your time. And that was my take. When I make a statement like that, what goes through your mind?
I pretty much agree with it. I think, you know, he talked about how AARO's mission was to make UAP, what did he call them? SEP, somebody else's problem. And that wasn't just with things like drones and whatnot. He specifically said that if they found something that could only be explained by extraterrestrial origin, they would then work with NASA to inform the congressional leadership of what was going on. So basically, he was saying, if we find some aliens, we'll just let NASA handle it. You know, their interest, I think, is a national security thing. There are objects that are unidentified. A lot of that is, you know, just things like clutter, like balloons and whatnot. Some of it is things like radar issues. And some of it might be foreign. Well, some of it definitely is foreign drones, because we know that actually happens. And some of it might be some kind of secret foreign drone. And then there might be something else, maybe aliens. You know, they just keep that as a just in case. But yeah, that's what their focus is just simply figuring out what things are. They're not alien hunters. They're not, you know, trying to figure out if ET is visiting. At least, as far as I know. But
I don't think you're wrong there. He was very, very, very clear.
Yeah.
And I think that the anticipation, because so many, including myself, I was calling it another UFO hearing. When the hearing really was about the budgeting of AARO and a mission statement. That's what the hearing was for. And there was a lot of expectation and hype behind it that's built up in social media that this is, we're going to have witnesses and this is going on. I wonder who's, and clearly that's not the case in the community. I think it hurts. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid, but that's not what AARO is for. The AARO is not the UFO action group, right? That's not the case here, is it?
No, and there's lots of people kind of involved in this. Kirsten Gillibrand is like the prime mover, I guess, of the of getting things done and getting AARO implemented and things like that. But sometimes I think politicians adopt an issue because they need an issue to be working on. And I'm sure that she works on other things as well, but she's becomes well known as the person who's in charge of this particular thing, and it's obviously something that has national security implications, even if aliens aren't real. And so it's something that she can be seen to be doing a good job at. I'm sure she wants to do a good job as well, but it's. If it really was such a big deal, why is there just one or two politicians who are interested in it? Why is there just one or two people have adopted it as their pet subject? And there's very, very few people actually, kind of pursuing this. And I think the Pentagon, like Sean Kirkpatrick, really isn't super interested in it, other than we have things we can't identify and we need to identify them, but they're probably just drones and things like that. So the whole alien thing, I think, for the military, I feel like the alien issue is a big distraction for most of them, like an unwelcome distraction, and they just don't want to actually engage with it. Think about the Air Force. How much has the Air Force actually told us about UFOs? Nothing really. There was one, I think, retired head of the Air Force a few months ago, basically said he had better things to do than investigate UFOs. Historically, people investigate UFOs. The evidence doesn't lead anywhere, and it's just a big waste of time. But then there's the huge public hubbub and lots of media interest, and they get swamped with requests from the media and FOIA requests and things like that. So, what did you make of the article that Avi Loeb and Sean Kirkpatrick co-authored last month about the headlines? The media said alien motherships are here dropping off drones, and that's what the media does. Okay, but it was a weird article, and it was weird that Kirkpatrick put his name on it. I think it was basically Avi Loeb just saying the type of things Avi Loeb says. He thinks it's likely that there's aliens throughout the galaxy and there's alien ships, and they're probably doing things like this. And he was hypothesizing maybe, if I wanted to seed the galaxy with life, I would make a mothership that would then drop off these dandelion type scout ships. And that's just how it would work. And it's speculation, it's science speculation, it's science fiction speculation. But then he wove in this whole other thing about how, if they were moving really fast, then they would be surrounded by plasma, and so they'll be really bright and we'd be able to see them. Which doesn't really seem like it's really anything in particular to do with the first thing, the whole mothership and the dandelions. It was like it was almost like a stream of consciousness. It's like Kirkpatrick says, "Hey, Avi, let's write a paper on UFOs," and Avi goes, "Sure, yeah, let's see. We'll do the thing about the mothership, and then people have been saying they've been moving really fast, but I don't think that's true. So we'll put in something about them being really bright if they're really fast. Mm-hmm. That sound good to you?" And Kirkpatrick says, "Yeah, sounds good. The science checks out. So I'll put my name on that." And then they publish it. I don't know why. Avi publishes like a paper every week.
Yeah, he does. He does.
Nothing to him.
I'll say this about Avi. I have ate dinner with him. I've shot TV shows with him. I have looked him straight in the eye and had very lengthy, deep conversation. And I will say this about that guy. That guy intimidates the crap out of me. He's really smart. Okay. I mean, like at a level that you and I will never, ever understand. He's like there. He's a very unique person on planet Earth. But he's so data driven, Mick, that he has access and understands data and is able to process it in a way that you and I we it's not what we do, right? And he's able, and so that motivation for him, he understands the true size of everything and the numbers of everything and how algorithms process through and he's able to visualize those answers at the end of that math. No, I'm being very I'm being very, very serious here.
Yeah, no, I know you are, but I wouldn't say I entirely agree with that. But continue.
I agree with what? I mean, he was director of the black hole.
Sure. No, he's a genius. He's a very good scientist, and he's done lots of great work, I'm sure. But I go back to the paper he wrote on the Ukrainian UFOs, which I thought was partly it was just he did his thing about if it was moving really fast there would be plasma, so it would be bright, and it wasn't. So that puts an upper limit on. So it's the same thing he did in the Kirkpatrick paper. But then he goes on to say that these black things, because it's in a war zone, are probably artillery shells and not flies. Whereas I think the flies are a vastly more likely explanation. And I did a bunch of math trying to explain to him why I thought this was the case. And when he first came back to me with rebuttals of my argument, the first rebuttals that he gave me were not very good. They were just kind of almost hand waving type things. He then came back with a better one, a much better one, where he kind of like, I should have said that from the start, and he gave me that one. But it also didn't really add up. The math really wasn't correct, I don't think. And I did quite a complicated simulation to try to demonstrate this, but then he kind of just stopped talking about the whole thing and then moved on. But I feel like we often give a lot of deference to people who have a lot of degrees. Now, obviously, he's vastly more accomplished than I am when it comes to physics. Knows a lot more about it than I do. But it doesn't mean that in every single analysis of a UFO video, his answer is going to be correct when it disagrees with my answer. I think, that's something that we've seen before with other people as well, like Travis Taylor, who has 2 PhDs. He often says things that are factually incorrect, or he does things where he gets the math wrong, or he gets some kind of facts wrong in his analysis. So it does happen that people get things wrong, even if they've got this, they do have these well-deserved
pedigree,
credentials.
Yeah, and although you are right, in fact, we're both right. But here's the thing, even when I tried to go a little woo with Avi, right? Yeah. He backed off. Now, I think that he believes it's a numbers game that I tend to agree with, where we could have up to 1 trillion planets just in the Milky Way, right? 1 trillion. Every star has got at least one planet. It's now a fact. And so when you base it on that, it's just 1 trillion, right? So when you get to percentages of what could support life, and you get down to 1/10% of 1 trillion, 1/100%, you're talking about hundreds of millions of planets, billions of planets. That and so it's a numbers driven situation. So how much of that, and then how much of that, and how much of that, and who would be aware of us? He'll go that far that it has to be that way. That's what the numbers are. Now, little grays visiting, little gray aliens abducting people. No. He's not anywhere near that. But he's a data driven guy, and it's the numbers that support what he believes is the possibility that we are not only being visited, but it's been going on for a very long time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate his take on that. Being data driven and making sure things are backed up with math. and physics. And some people in the community like disagree with him on essentially the Kirkpatrick paper argument that you have to look at things under the lens of known physics, because the idea, of course, is that the aliens would use physics which we have not yet discovered, and so they think that he's kind of limiting himself when he says that. But he talks about things that are fairly far out, like the idea of Oumuamua being a portion of the solar sail, that kind of asteroid type thing that came through
Have you read this book? Have you read Extraterrestrial?
I have not. No.
Read it, and then revisit that statement you were about to make. Read that.
Well, he wrote a book like a couple of years ago now, and I think there's been a bunch of research by other people since then on things like the hydrogen pressure and the outgassing and things like that. I'm sure his book makes a very compelling case, because that's what he sets out to do. He's setting out, here's my argument, and I think that this is what happened, and I think it's probably aliens. But a lot of people disagree with him.
Of course they do.
Yeah, a lot of scientists,
and we need that. We need that. We all can't just agree. That's not a fun place to be. We need to be able to sit down and talk things through and have sides of stuff. I will say this. He makes one point in Extraterrestrial that it's an unbelievable thing to wrap your head around. No matter what, Oumuamua is gone. It ain't coming back.
Yeah.
So the only data that we have is what was collected for those 11 days. And it caught us by surprise. By the time we started pointing stuff to it, it's hauling, man. It's doing almost 300,000 miles per hour, right? And then it's gone. And that's it. There will never be more data. Therefore, everybody's looking at what we have got, and they are developing their own ideas and theories and hypotheses. That's it. And that's a really good point that he's making here. It's not going to come back for more data. We've only got what we've got, and this is what we need to analyze. And that's his case. You should read Extraterrestrial. It's really well done.
Yeah, I might give it a go. I like the Oumuamua case in part because it reminds me of two of my favorite science fiction books. One of them is Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke, where a very similar looking thing comes into our solar system. And
very similar situation.
Yeah, it's a long thing, but they go into it and they get inside it, and of course it's a bit more alien. And then there's another book called Dragon's Egg.
Also very good.
Yeah, which is about a neutron star, essentially, that kind of like zips through our solar system just for a brief period of time, but it actually contains alien life, and it's just there for a brief period of time. But it's longer from the perspective of the aliens. But yeah, I love science fiction. I love science, and the idea of Oumuamua being something, is really appealing to me. If there could be some actual evidence, some actually convincing evidence, I would love that. But I don't want to be beguiled by the idea that it is aliens and then start accepting evidence just because I want that evidence to be true.
That's right. Well, that's the world of Mick West, right? And I have said it many times. If Mick West or anybody else is going to ruin your life, that's on you, right? And it's the same thing, Mick. Just go and read the book. That's all. Okay. Collect the data, and
I'll put it on my list.
It's a very compelling case that is laid out, and I'll just leave it at that. I just, like everything else, just lump it into the middle of the table, and let's see what we've got in the end. And remember the beer can. That's all I got to say. So back to AARO, though.
Okay.
Why is it? And I'm not here to piss everybody off, but why is it that we seem to have two different stories going on at the same time, out in front in the media, where we have got Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo and their constant trips to Washington and working on this task force and talking to this and pushing this through and the alien agenda, and ET is here. And it appeared that, and hearings and witnesses are coming, and that's coming from that camp, and getting social media all, wild up. And then Kirkpatrick comes out and deflates what is publicly being put on by Mellon and Elizondo and others too as well. And we're getting these two conflicting stories. Somebody here is wrong, or is Elizondo and Mellon talking to another group and it has nothing to do with AARO?
Well, it does seem like there's some kind of dispute about, perhaps what UFOs are within the Pentagon. There were conflicting stories in the media a while back. There was a story by Julian Barnes in the New York Times. I think this was just before the last UAP report came out, or a while before it came out. It was when it was supposed to come out. It was quite a bit late. And he spoke to a source in the Pentagon, and someone at ABC News also spoke to this same person or a similar person. And then this person had told them that there wasn't very much going on. There was no real evidence of aliens. The gimbal video was just rotating glare, rotating camera artifacts, and the go fast video wasn't going particularly fast. And most of what they were seeing was balloons. I'm not sure if they said that, but that's what came out eventually. But then someone in the Daily Mail comes up with an article. I think it was I can't remember his name now. The guy, and Chris Sharp and the other guy, writing of the Daily Mail. They interviewed another guy who is a Pentagon source, and this guy's like super angry. It's like, well, this is not what's going on at all. There's all these amazing videos. We have videos from Reaper drones of this stuff that's incredible, and we have we know that a lot of things are balloons, but we don't really care about that. So it seems like there are some people within the Pentagon who think, oh, it's just a big bunch of nothing, and then there's some people in the Pentagon who think, oh, it's this amazing thing.
And those articles were about a week apart.
Yeah,
and I had said then, Mick, I want your opinion on this. It seemed like somebody was feeding somebody bunk, and maybe bunk going in both directions too, as well, right?
Yeah, it's hard to say when you've got an anonymous source. Both sources were anonymous. You don't know to what level that person is and what type of information they've got and what information they have access to. And so this first person at the Pentagon that they were talking to might be someone who didn't actually know that much about it. He might have been someone who just seen my videos online and thought, oh yeah, Mick West explains it, so that's all it is. But it might be someone who knows what's actually going on. We don't know which one of those it is. And then this other person was someone who probably knew something about the report, because they knew things that were in the report that came out. They mentioned these orbs seen from a Reaper drone, which is something that came out later, something that Kirkpatrick actually showed a video of later. It wasn't super amazing, but it was something that this person mentioned. So it seems like there might be somebody in the UAP task force and whatever eventually was AIMSOG and then AARO, who is very passionate about it and thinks that there's a big issue with these weird things that are flying around that are not our technology and they're not foreign technology, so therefore there must be alien technology.
What's your position? What's your position on that? Do you believe that we are being visited?
No, I don't think there's good evidence showing that. I wouldn't rule it out because it's a possibility. I don't know, what's going on in the rest of the universe, and I don't know what technology they have, but I do know the evidence that is presented for that, and the evidence isn't very good. We get promises of these amazing things. People would promise you things like this video is going to come out, it'll blow your mind, and then it ends up being something like that sphere video, which is just not a very compelling video. It's something it looks like a 2-foot round mylar sphere that's just floating in the air. And it looks amazing because it's shot from a Reaper drone that has a camera which tracks the ground. So it looks like the thing moves, but it's just the parallax effect. So we get these promises of things like Lou Elizondo says there's a 23-minute video that's just amazing. It shows this incredible thing that's going on. But either it doesn't show up, or when the video comes out, it's really not that amazing. Jeremy Corbell is always promising us amazing things. At Alien Con, he showed a little teaser of this one image, which was a UAP moving across the screen and leaving a trail. And that basically was pretty much the same thing that Kirkpatrick showed, that was actually just a plane, and the trail was just a camera artifact. But even that,
it felt to me that Kirkpatrick did that on purpose. That was very pointed. Both those videos.
Both of those things. Yeah, exactly. Both of them were basically direct answers to Corbell's things, because Corbell released a still of a different video of a small orb flying in the sky. And this other thing with the trail. But even it was bizarre the way Kirkpatrick did that. Like he had this slide that said the trail was a video compression artifact. And then he, in his presentation, says the trail was a sensor readout artifact, which are two completely different things. So it's almost like two different people. One was making the slide and one was writing his speech. And was it him? Did he write his own speech, or is he just reading something somebody else wrote? And why does the slide say something that's technically entirely different? A sensor readout thing means that the sensors, the pixels of the sensor keep the intensity of the image for a while. So you get these after images. Video compression artifacts would be something completely different. Now, it's probably the first one.
I want to ask you about the New York Times when it was Leslie Kane, Ralph Blumenthal, I forget the author, 2 years ago.
Cooper.
Yes. And then buried in the bottom towards the end of the article, it said that they had a quote attributed to Dr. Eric Davis that said that he said that he gave a classified briefing to the Senate about us being in possession of, not crash retrievals, of flying saucers. Right.
Yeah.
Now,
crafts not of this world, I think. Something like
that. Right. Right. Now, that right there should have been the lead in the article, number one. But it's down at the bottom, and you would think that, and I've talked to Leslie Kane about this. I've talked to Ralph Blumenthal about this on the air, about due diligence and vetting quotes like that. And he said, well, that is, the New York Times did what they had to do to vet that quote. All right. Well, that's like the biggest news in human history. Why isn't this being followed up on? Why isn't, and it seems that this is now chatter that is happening in Washington, D.C. What do you, is your position going to change if we start having testimony, whistleblower stuff?
Well, yeah, it's testimony is one thing. Like testimony would be great, but do you remember? I'm sure you remember the Disclosure Project and the talks that were given in the press club back. I can't remember what it was. It might have been like
2013, right?
Yeah, there was an earlier one as well, I think.
That's the Stephen Greer one. Right.
Yeah, a bunch of whistleblowers came forward and they told us about things like crash retrieval, having seen alien bodies. One woman had photographs of bases on the moon. All these things, came out. So, but it wasn't backed up with anything.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm referring to.
Go anyway.
What I'm referring to is, what if we get somebody from Lockheed Skunk Works that ranks and comes off the bigot list and says, yeah, I work at Skunk Works and we've got a craft and we can't make this thing fly, but yes, we have it. What do we do with that? And there's some expectations that this actually may happen this year.
Yeah. So if that happens, there's two ways of interpreting it. It's either true or it's not. If it's true, if they do actually have an alien craft with strange technology, that's world changing. Like you say, like this is one of the biggest things in human history. And so the news that the biggest thing in human history has happened is something that would get a lot of scrutiny. And so people would ask questions and they wanted to back it up. So just simply some guy saying that this was true, I don't think would be enough by itself. Well, we get some people like Steve Justice.
What if it was Steve Justice?
Yeah, but people can believe things and say things which to them are true. And so that under oath, they could be saying that they believe certain things to be true, but they might be misremembering, they might have misunderstood, or they might have seen something and it's not what they thought it was.
Yeah.
So then we've got to move on. So, like, he's given his testimony to Congress. That, I think, would trigger investigations. At the very least, a lot of media investigations, and probably some congressional and Senate and upper-level government investigations. It would be a big firestorm of stuff going on if something of that level actually happened. And so, we would I just watch this as it is unfold. I don't have to do anything at this point. It's not like they're putting any videos out. It would be a very interesting situation, but I think it would be the start of something. It wouldn't be the end. It wouldn't be disclosure. It would be the start of something that either reveals that there's this bizarre set of weird things going on that isn't aliens, or it's something that reveals that we actually do have contact with aliens, and then we've got to deal with either of those two things. Eric Weinstein is always saying that this is the biggest story ever, because either it's this monumental cock-up on the part of the government and the military, where they've got all this stuff about aliens going on, but it's not aliens, or it's aliens. I tend to think that we haven't really got to the stage of either of those realities yet. I don't think we really have this vast amount of evidence and belief, but we're kind of getting towards it. We're getting towards this situation where there's serious people talking about aliens when it's possible that they are mistaken.
Right, how did we get here? Because it happened pretty quickly, right? We're talking about I've been investigating this for 50 years. I'm 60 years old. Okay, so I've been doing this since I was 10, and I know a lot about a lot, but that's just basic research. But I have never seen of climate in my 50 years of research what has gone down in the last since 2017, almost 6 years now, where it is everywhere. It's in the White House press room, it's on Capitol Hill, it's at the DOD, it's at the Pentagon press conferences, it's at the cover of the New York Times. We got whistleblowers, we got pilots, we got this, we got 60 Minutes. It's all, well, we used to have this guy named Tucker Carlson, but I think the alien agenda took him out. But why now?
I think it's, in a way, it's the perfect storm. There's a bunch of pressure that's always been there by people who want to get disclosure out. Leslie Kean has been wanting to do it a long time. Ralph Blumenthal has been interested in it a long time. And they managed to persuade the New York Times that they could write an article. Lou Elizondo had got convinced at some point that aliens are real, and he's been working behind the scenes, it seems, in various ways to try to promote this agenda. The other guy, the tall guy, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense guy, what's his name? Chris Mellon. Mm-hmm. Is also a big believer. He's been convinced. This is what happens, and enough people get convinced of these things, and they work towards it. And we had the perfect set of circumstances. We had Elizondo deciding to leave his position. We had Tom DeLonge, for some reason, deciding he wanted to start a company to do things, and he managed to persuade people like Steve Justice to come along and design a anti-gravity spaceship for him based on studying UFOs. And we have the old guard, people like Hal Puthoff and Jacques Vallée, either right there in the TTSA or behind the scenes talking and advising. And it all just kind of came to this point, and this was this crux with the New York Times story. And when the New York Times story was published, and they had these two videos of genuine UFOs from the military of the U.S. government, it then kind of broke the dam, allowed everybody to start talking about it, allowed everybody to start discussing UFOs, and even allowed people to start investigating UFOs. And then that just created this, perfect storm, which built upon itself like one of those super waves. A bunch of small waves come along, and eventually it builds up, and you get a big wave. And it got to where we are now. I think, though, that it's kind of run its natural course in that type of thing. And what we're seeing now is almost an artificial inflation of that wave. And I think the bubble might be about to pop.
And pop in a good way or pop in a bad way?
Well, it depends on your perspective. I think what's happening with AARO is that it's the serious attention that ufology has been asking for and demanding for many years. They've UFO people are being like, take me seriously, take the subject seriously. This is a real thing. We should have scientists investigating it. The government should be investigating it. There should be hearings in Congress and the Senate. And now you're getting those things. You're getting a task force which has teams of people, science team, a military team. They're investigating all these UFOs. They want to make as much stuff public as they can. We've got like Avi Loeb setting up giant telescopes everywhere, scanning the skies, looking for UFOs. And we've got people spending millions of dollars on tech startups to use AI to study UFO reports, trying to glean some interesting information from it. We've got a vast amount of things. We've got the military going back through all old radar reports and the old FAA radar. We've got NASA looking at these public domain things. All this stuff's going on. It's this spotlight. It's this seriousness that ufology has demanded. But what if, with all that attention, nothing comes out? Nothing comes to the surface. The light has been switched on, but the room is empty. If that happens, I think a lot of people are going to be really disappointed, and the air will go out of the bubble.
Well, it's also history repeating itself, because if we go back and we look at the different phases of things in the 50s and the 60s, of course the 1952 Washington D.C. flyover, which was a very serious situation at that time, and then the formation of NICAP and the lifting of UFO secrecy with Donald Kehoe. That was a big deal, and that was staffed. The board of NICAP was Navy admirals. And eventually in the 1960s, the CIA got involved with it. This was all to lift the secrecy behind UFOs. And if you look at all of the research that was going on at that time, Mick, and the cases that were being brought forward, forget about Blue Book. That was something that was completely separate. All of that was going on and fell apart. Blue Book lasted until 1969, and then the wheels came off of that. And it's a cyclical thing that we find ourselves in. So we had, just like the media is paying attention to this today, they were doing this in 1952, 1953, 1954, a very high level of hysteria in this country. It was crazy town. There was also, again, if you just look at the historical perspective on this, in 1945 and 46 in Albuquerque, Los Alamos, and of course we know about Trinity and the atomic bomb and everything that was going on at that time. Over Los Alamos, for a period of about a year, were green glowing balls of light that would come in pairs and sometimes in groups of three and pass, and it was freaking out the scientists there. I mean, losing their minds to the point where they had no explanation for. We're talking about the smartest people on planet Earth. We're all at that one spot at that one time. So they installed 3 different ginormous radar installations to triangulate and chase this stuff down. These were the things that were happening. It wasn't just, Bo and Mo in a fishing boat in Louisiana. No, this was a very, very serious situation. So we've seen this go through cyclically. So what does the government actually know based on some of the examples that I've just given you, which was always a military perspective and a national security perspective for the last 70, almost 80 years now? So yeah, I believe that there are people in the Pentagon and agencies that have collected this data, reports and sensor and radar data that have come in from professional military service people, and they've collected this data. So I think that they very well know that there is something going on. They may not know what, but they know it's there.
Yeah, I don't know. What's interesting to me about that type of thing, the old evidence, is that everyone I talk to seems to have a different favorite example. Like the one you just gave me there with the green objects over Los Alamos. I never heard of that one before. And you'd think that if it was such a huge event, which it sounds like it would be, scientists all concerned about this and building radar installations and then not figuring out what it was. Why haven't I heard about it? Why aren't other people bringing it up? Other people try to persuade me of old things, and then some will talk about Roswell, some will talk about, Kehoe stuff, and they'll talk about there's a guy called Douglas, and various different things from these old reports, but they all seem to have different favorite ones. And I think that part of that comes down to storytelling. I think if you can tell a tale like that in a way that's very compelling, then people will they'll kind of get hooked into it. If you start believing it because you're viewing it from a certain perspective. But I'd like to kind of look at an example like that from a fresh perspective, and I'd actually really like to look into that one with the green objects and see what it's actually all about. Because obviously I think you found it very compelling, and maybe it actually is. So I'll definitely look into that one.
Yeah. I love the history of this, and I go back and study the moderns. And again, Mick, I need to really stress with you, all of this can't be UFOs. I understand that. But I've seen what I have seen.
Yeah.
And I am going to go and chase this and get the answers. And there are too many people in this community that are here in this community, just like you stated, actually. They're here from a personal experience. And something has brought them here, and their life's journey has brought them here to this moment. And I have to respect that, because
totally. I agree.
Yeah, I have the same crazy ass story. I sound as crazy as anybody else.
You don't. I mean, you sound like you're relating an experience that happened to you, and that's anything. That's all that any experiencer can do. They had an experience which, from their perspective, appeared to be a certain way, and they're telling that story as best as they can recall it and as best as they understand it. And the vast majority of people in ufology are completely honest. Someone asked me the other day, like, how many fake videos get sent to you, and it's hardly any. People are always sending me their own videos that they took themselves. No one really sends me a fake video. You see them on TikTok, but people are not like promoting them within the UFO community. Well, they do, but they're not like saying I took this video. And the vast majority of people are honest, and I believe an experiencer, when they tell me they saw something, I believe that's what they thought that they saw. What they actually saw, we don't know. But they're being honest.
Have you found one you haven't debunked? Have you had? Is there a video that even you, Mick West, has stepped back and gone, okay, well that's pretty nuts. I got nothing. Have you seen that video yet?
Well, yeah, on TikTok, there's lots of anonymous videos that are probably fake.
Let's leave TikTok alone. I mean, is there that your analysis, it wasn't Starlink and it wasn't Venus, it was something that you couldn't answer and you were impressed?
I don't think there's one where it appears to demonstrate unusual anomalous behavior or anomalous physics. I think there's always enough room for a plausible explanation in this, but a lot of the time there's not enough information to determine what that explanation is, or to pick from a number of various hypotheses, and often that they have problems. Sometimes I think like situations can arrive where you have weird set of circumstances and coincidences, and it seems like it might be impossible that a certain explanation could be there, and it's very difficult to persuade people that it might be possible. But it's a possible hypothesis, and it ends up there's just not enough information to make a determination. But no, I don't think there's like a really weird video that I think has a weird explanation. I think it probably has a reasonable explanation.
I want to share this with you. You know what? I'm going to make a note. I need to take a commercial break. So let me get this in, and then I just got to write so I don't forget. Our guest tonight, the one and only, not from the United Kingdom, Mick West. Mick West is joining us. This is Fade to Black, very special Friday night presentation. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back. This is Jimmy Church, and I want to introduce you to Wave X39 Stem Cell Activation Patch, which has totally transformed my health, my sleep, brain, and my eyes. I no longer need reading glasses. X39 is a true breakthrough in regenerative science. Using light, X39's patented age reversal technology is clinically proven to signal the activation of younger stem cells, accelerating the body's natural healing process. X39 promotes restoration and rejuvenation, bringing the life-changing benefits that I've experienced. By naturally elevating a master signaling peptide in the body, X39 boosts vitality, health and wellness, and resets 4,000 genes to a younger, healthier state. It's one patch, once a day, and you can turn back time with X39. Just go to healingworksnow.com. That's works with an X. healingworksnow.com.
Hey everybody, it's Billy Carson, also known as Forbidden Knowledge. I want to talk to you about a very special event coming up July 30th, 2023, the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We're going to honor people who have been contributing to the conscious community for decades. People that you know and love that have helped you get to higher levels of thought and consciousness and awareness. It's going to be a live in-person event, but seats are going to sell out very fast. You want to make sure you're there in person, and guess what? You can help vote for the winners. Voting is available on forbiddenknowledge.com, and the categories are going to be social media influencer, podcast/radio host, TV host, actor, director, producer, entrepreneurs, health and wellness, philanthropists, authors, field researchers, archaeologists, space anomaly hunters, and of course, a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'll be your keynote speaker that night at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We have celebrity guests performing. We'll have a halftime show where we're actually going to perform music for you. And don't forget about the pre-event mixer, where if you buy a box seat, you'll be in the VIP section, and you also have private access to a VIP mixer with celebrity guests. Shake hands, break bread, network, and then walk the red carpet with us and take amazing photos. It's going to be a night to remember. You don't want to forget this. Make sure you hurry up and get your tickets because they're selling out very fast. I want to see you there. Forbidden Conscious Awards 2023.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Our guest tonight, Mick West. Great conversation tonight. And Mick, sometimes I like to say that you center me. But not tonight. Not tonight.
Oh, we're getting a little
center tonight. I wanted to ask you. I know this isn't in your wheelhouse, but it kind of is. Over the weekend, a crazy news story broke on all the media about cattle mutilations in Texas. Did you read the press release on this?
I've read bits of the story. I'm not sure if I read the original press release, but I'm familiar with like 6 cows killed, tongues removed. and nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah, no blood. There was a seventh cow. They updated the story today, so there was a seventh, exactly the same fashion. No blood, surgical precision, butt removed, udders, eye, ear, right, tongue, but no blood, no tire tracks, no footprints, no predators, nothing like that. Just seemingly. Just dropped off and mutilated for no reason.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. What do you make of that?
I think the cattle mutilation thing is mostly, if not entirely, just natural causes. I think.
How so?
I think that what happens is a cow dies, and then the soft bits of that cow, like the lips and the rectum and the genitals, get eaten by critters first, because those are the bits that are easiest to eat. And
wouldn't we see that everywhere?
Yeah, but this is a thing. Like, I mean, when a cow dies, probably like the farmer will see it. And then they'll deal with it, but it requires a cow to die and be left there for a while. Now, 6 cows dying at the same time is a bit odd. Now, you normally would see like a single cow die, but this is something that does actually happen. Like that, this cows actually get like stressed, or they'll all eat the same thing, or they'll get they'll get struck by lightning all at the same time. This is something that happens. There's been quite much larger herds of cattle that are struck by lightning. So let's say that happened in this example. There was a lightning strike. 6 cows were killed over the few days. Like, some coyotes came in and they ate the soft bits of the cows, like starting with their tongues and the faces and their rectums and things like that. And then they get found, and because they're all 6 dead together, and they've all had the same bits eaten because they've all got the same soft bits.
Don't you think, this is where I've got to play devil's advocate with you?
Sure.
That the sheriff's department in the middle of frigging Texas sees dead cattle all the time, right?
Yeah.
And
but like, is the sheriff's department the people you want to ask? You want to get a forensic animal pathologist to examine the corpses,
and they did. And so that came out today too as well. Okay. I'll circle back to that. And now I forgot. Oh, here's my note. This is what I wanted to circle back to. See, this is the beauty of not having an agenda with the conversation. I'm all over the place tonight. Is that surgical precision of removing a tongue is these ranchers and these sheriffs that are dealing with cattle and hustlers and rustlers and things all the time, for them to say something like this, that it's not a predator and there's no predator footprints and there's nothing like this here. No, I don't feel that.
I know it's one of those things, though. Like, you would think that an expert or someone in authority, at least, who's lived in this position would know. But this case, I don't follow cattle mutilation so much, but I do follow UFOs. And there was a case recently, I think, in Utah and Colorado, where there were these swarms of drones flying over fields. And they had the sheriff out there saying like that they were seeing them, and they sent a camera crew out with the sheriff, and the sheriff was like, "Oh, there goes another one," and points to this thing flying overhead. But I recognized what it was. It was a 737, and it was just very high up, and I recognized the navigation lights, and we even figured out which one it was because they weren't that. We knew the intersection they were at. But here's a sheriff who's a law enforcement official, a trained observer, who's been in this situation for a long time. He sees planes fly over all overhead, but he gets caught up in the excitement of it being a drone swarm, and he misidentifies a 737 as a drone. So I think that there's something similar might happen with cattle. They don't go looking in cows' mouths every time a cow dies to see if its tongue's still there. And they don't know what happens at the various stages of every single cow dropping dead. sure they're the sheriff, but they're not vets. So I think perhaps there's this air of false authority that we might get, and you need to get an actual authority, someone's an expert in this type of thing, someone who knows what happens to a cow if you leave it there for a while. And if there really is something going on, why don't we take some dead cows and leave them in the field and see what happens to them?
I've done that, and I've seen the time-lapse video of that, and that is an organic dissolving of everything.
Eventually,
yeah, and so I'm talking about right angles of skin.
Yeah.
As far as I know, coyotes don't have opposing thumbs and cannot use Dremels. I'm just saying, Meg. I'm just going there. I'm a little perplexed, and to have a seventh, all from different herds, but along this. Now, this is the thing. This is the case. This is the rare case that I want this to be aliens. Because I understand, I would fully understand that. I would get it. I would, and okay, so they're grabbing cows and they're experimenting on them and then dropping them off. All right, that's cool. The alternative, we've got zombie coyotes running around, killing, or we've got a satanic cult doing rituals along a Texas highway. That stuff would scare me. That's not what I want it to be. I'd rather have it be aliens.
Yeah, no. Well, maybe someone who really likes tongue meat found 6 dead cows that have been struck by lightning and chopped the tongues out and took it home.
Yeah, I don't want that, man. That's the part that I don't want. Please let it be aliens.
Yeah, I mean, something weird happened. It might have involved people, it might have involved aliens, or it might have just been natural causes. And it's one of these things where we don't have enough information to tell. Yeah, the foxes have very sharp side teeth. They're almost like scissors. And they can make very sharp cuts in soft tissues, and so they can kind of cleanly cut along like the lip line of a face, and it looks very neat, according to that CIA report. Was it the CIA? The FBI. The FBI was asked to investigate it, and one of the things that they got was this report from a veterinary pathologist who talked about how foxes had very sharp teeth, and that would explain a lot of what we were seeing. So there are possibilities, and I think we should be open to them. I think aliens probably pretty low on the list. Some kind of secret government program is probably also more likely than aliens, but also fairly low on the list. Some weirdo killing cows and cutting them up or finding dead cows and chopping their tongues out, possible, but also doesn't sound particularly likely. And then some kind of natural causes that just happens to look like this is also something that's on the list, but we don't really know exactly where to put it.
I don't know about coyote nibbling with I don't know, Nick. I don't know.
Yeah, foxes, not coyotes, but it's different. And possums, opossums and the raccoons and skunks, smaller animals, they kind of gnaw at things, but I don't know, we don't know what the circumstances were. Sure, you could leave a cow in a field, but we've really got to leave a cow in that field the same time of the year with the same types of animal life around and leave it for a period of time. If you just leave it in a random field, you're going to get a random, dissolution of the body. But it's one of those things that I like doing garage experiments, but I'm not going to kill a cow and stick it in my garage and watch what happens.
Right. I'm just wondering if we're going to have a run, this summer of cow mutilation stories. How run in cycles. What I wanted to mention to you, and I really hope the mutilations are aliens. I will sleep better at night. I had this sighting. Okay. I had just gotten back hanging out with Avi Loeb. And so I get back home and I run out on my patio at night. I was talking to you about this earlier, just like the video that I shot. I'm always out there with my binoculars and my night vision, and I'm right next to Skunk Works, and there's always something interesting to see and observe. You should come out. It's a lot of fun. You'll debunk everything, but it's still really cool to go through the experience. And so I'm out there, And from the perspective of the video that you broke down of mine, right? I'm looking north, and I'm not really doing anything, by the way. I'm just standing. And this is what happens. It's about 11 o'clock at night. From the north over the horizon, and the whole thing lasted about 2 seconds.
Oh.
Okay. The first. So this bright light comes out over the horizon at a slight angle, goes all the way across the sky, over and disappears in the behind the mountains in back of me. It covers the hemisphere, right? In 2 seconds. Now I see stuff all the time. You see planes, and you see, this was a bullet.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So as I see that, and I'm like, now what? I just never seen anything like it. It happened a second time, like 5 seconds later, as I'm sitting there going, bing, right over the top, and goes over the horizon. I write everything down, time, direction, right? Everything. I run in the house and I send Avi an email. Okay, dude, this has got I don't know what it was, but this has to have been observed. So this is what happened. I give him everything. I give him the direction. I give him the time. Thankfully, I had written everything down. I knew it pretty much to the minute. And I said, Avi, just check with all of the observatories around the world. Somebody saw this, and I don't know what streak past the planet. That's what I think it was. Meteor, asteroid, undetected. I don't know, but it didn't enter the atmosphere. It didn't flame out. It stayed up, right? Avi writes me back the next day. He said, man, I checked around. We got nothing. I said, that's impossible. I wrote Avi back. I said, that's impossible. There is no way that this was not seen. And it happened twice.
Yeah.
So please. And he wrote me back. He said, Jimmy, I made the rounds, man. And I reached out to everybody, and we've got nothing. Nothing showed up. And I'm a little, this one I'm a little confused about. It went across the entire sky, back to back. It looked like, which was very unusual to have that repeat, because the second one caught me more by surprise than the first one did. I didn't expect it. I just happened to be looking in the same area, like, that was weird. And then boom, it happened a second time. And Avi had nothing.
Yeah. Well, I got nothing either.
Yeah.
But like there's a number of things you can do with that. Like, first of all, like you said, it went from horizon to horizon in 2 seconds, which is incredibly fast.
Incredibly fast.
The ISS takes like 10 minutes or something. It goes completely overhead. It's and that's like 250 miles up. So if it was something that was actually in space or in the lower atmosphere, it would be just insanely fast. Like planes going from horizon to horizon, they take a long time, many minutes.
You know what I can do? This is interesting. I'll go back. I'll get the email that I sent to Avi that had all the data in it, and I'll send it to you. It's all there. It's all timestamped.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
But I think probably like another aspect of that is kind of like what we talked about earlier, is that if it was this amazing, spectacular thing that was flying overhead, you'd think someone else would have seen it. Usually when there's a meteorite, there's quite a few reports of people seeing them. And this one sounded like pretty spectacular too, one after the other, going from horizon to horizon, which makes me suspect, and you probably won't like this, that it was something that was only visible from your perspective, which might mean it was something a lot smaller, like someone perhaps just shooting a firework over your head or something.
I was even going more mundane than that. Look, I debunk this stuff in my head all the time, right? Yeah. And I was thinking maybe it was like a hawk.
Yep.
Right. It was just something that just happened to be flying, but and I'm trying to keep myself grounded here, right, and not lose it. But no. And then the second time that it happened, you could tell. The first time it caught me by surprise. I watched. The second time, I was able to. No, this was out. This was out and above. This was past planet Earth.
Right.
This was not satellite.
But it wasn't detected by Harvey's friends, and nobody else saw it. So, are the aliens giving you a unique glimpse of their spaceship in space from down on Earth?
I don't smoke. I don't smoke. but here's the thing with that. Maybe Avi just didn't tell me. Okay.
Possible. Can't rule it out. Can't rule it out.
I really felt in a weird way that he was going to come back and go, yeah, we picked it up and it's already gone. But yes, we saw it. And yes, you're right. There was two things, and it was just a high-speed asteroid, maybe interstellar, whatever. And I was going to get that back. I got nothing.
Yeah. I feel it's too fast though. I think if it was that fast and it was in the atmosphere, it would basically explode. It wouldn't make it all the way from one side of the. You've seen things like space junk. I was talking earlier about these glowing things that I didn't get a video of, and that was like a Chinese rocket re-entering, and that takes quite a long time, even though it's traveling at 20,000 miles per hour or whatever they're going at, fast enough to burn up in the atmosphere. If something going across in 2 seconds, it seems like it would explode as soon as it touched the Earth's atmosphere. But I guess Avi would have some math on that one. But
I was pretty upset with them, and I don't want to send all the private email, but some of it I was starting to elevate my, I don't want to say I wasn't angry, but I was like, man, are you sure? Are you sure nobody's come on? Did you really check? And it was like that because I saw what I saw, and I can't explain it. And exact same trajectory, same line, same everything. Somebody just asked in the chat how bright it was. It was the same as a star.
What if someone shot a tracer bullet over your house from a few blocks away?
Would it go horizon to horizon? It would, see, in front of
look like it.
Okay,
half a mile away. So
okay, so in front of me, I like where you're going with this. But also where I live, and if you come out and hang out with me, you can hear your heartbeat.
Right.
Dead quiet at night. There's no cars, there's no action, there's no crime, there's no sirens, there's nothing but me and the anti-gravity ships over Lockheed Skunk Works. But in front of me, about 10 miles away, is a mountain range. It's the desert. This is the Mojave Desert, right? It's flat. And so out in front of me is a mountain range, and that's where it came out. And then behind me is another set of mountains. I'm in the middle in the Mojave Desert, which is the Merock Lake bed, where they did all the X-1 Chuck Yeager's down things, Edwards Air Force Base. That's right. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds really interesting, but there's only so far you can go with eyewitness accounts. You can maybe do some of that hypothetical math, like if it was in space, how fast would it be going, and if it was in the atmosphere, how fast would it be going, and what type of plasma effects would you expect? That's the type of thing that Avi and apparently Sean Kirkpatrick like to do, is figure out how bright things would be if they were actually going through the atmosphere. So you could do that math at least, I would think.
Yeah,
get Avi to do it.
Yeah, hot on the heels of Oumuamua and everything else, that there would be some interest here, and they would go back and look at the data and see if anything passed. But I got nothing. I got total silence, and I was pretty surprised about that. Now, I wanted to, as we start to wrap up here, I wanted to get your thoughts on the James Webb Space Telescope. You do visual analysis. You understand cameras, lenses, telemetry, FLIR, infrared, different types of spectrum, everything that the James Webb is out there doing right now, and looking at the chemical breakdowns of different atmospheres. Its mission is to find a technosignature, a biosphere out there with an exoplanet. Do you expect anything Any discoveries from James Webb?
Well, this is new territory. We've never had the capability to do this before, so we don't really know what to expect. And I don't know if I would say I would expect. I think it would be incredibly cool. I don't know what odds to put on it. I wouldn't bet against it, though. I think it's entirely possible that the James Webb Space Telescope sometime in the next few years might find a planet with at least some kind of primitive indication of life, which would be pretty amazing. I don't know if it's going to find a spacefaring civilization, but perhaps some type of industry. It's possible. It's possible. It's we don't know. There's these huge unknowns about the Drake equation and exactly how prevalent life is. We know there's 1 trillion possible planets in the galaxy, but we don't know what percentage of that. And you can say, even if it's only 1/10 of a 1/10%, there's still quite a lot. But we don't know. Maybe it's less than that. Maybe it's more than that. And I'd love it. I'd love it if the James Webb Space Telescope found evidence of life out there. And I certainly wouldn't bet against it.
Do you ponder ideas like if we because right now we're just monkeys and apes on this planet, right? We're not that smart. Okay, in the big picture, where the observable universe is 90 billion light years across, right? That's a lot of light years. That's a lot. And we have gone 1.5 seconds off of our planet. That's it, to the moon, right? 1.5 seconds. We've barely gone down to the end of the driveway to check the mail, right? So we are a very primitive species. But what are we doing? We're detecting exoplanets. We're out there looking. We're at a technical level now where we can observe light transients across very distant stars and detect planets. That's pretty incredible. So if there's an advanced species out there, even at our level, they're doing the exact same thing, right? Of course, right? Why wouldn't they? They would be looking for planets. If they're a little bit ahead of us by just 50 years, imagine where we would be in 50 years. So if they're 50 years in front of us, let alone 10,000 years in front of us, they would have detected us and the fact that it's a beautiful blue planet with life on it. That's not too far of a stretch, is it?
Sure, no, and that's entirely possible. If there is life out there, and there's a lot of it, it's entirely possible that there's a civilization that has detected us. Of course, they would be very far away, and them detecting us doesn't really, it doesn't give them a lot of time to get here, because human civilization and our techno signature has only been really around for a few hundred years, basically. So most civilizations in the galaxy are going to be much further than 100 light years away. As far as we know, we can't go faster than the speed of light. Maybe we can, but it's quite possible. It's entirely possible that we can't go faster than the speed of light. So perhaps there are, in fact, a whole bunch of alien civilizations sending probes in our direction because they have just detected us in the last few decades, because it's taken 100 years for the technosignatures from Earth to get out there. So it's possible. It's possible. I don't know how likely it is, because we don't know what the prevalence of life is throughout the universe. It may be that the average distance between civilizations is 1,000 light years. So we won't get anybody visiting us for 1,000 years, even if we start broadcasting now, or 2,000 years, because it's got to get there and back. And even longer, because travel takes quite a while, not just the speed of light.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I used to absolutely 100% be in that camp. I did. I've changed my view on it, and I've only changed my view because of certain things, like that beer can that disappeared. It just vaporized, right? It's just gone. So now, if we look at the way that theoretical physics and quantum physics and astrophysics looks at the math that presents to them 11 dimensions, right? The multiverse, multi-world,
Superstring.
parallel worlds, 100% superstring. So if we go to all of that and understand that, then something coming in and out of our reality, although very briefly, is a way to, you're not traveling at the speed of light, you're traveling at the speed of now, right? And
yeah. I mean, it sounds good.
Well,
it sounds good, but does it pad out with the actual science, though? I mean, if you
It
talk to Avi about it, he'll probably pour a bit of cold water on your idea.
No, he wouldn't, because I would be right. And see, but here's the thing, Mick. Here's the thing. 200 years ago, you and I go back to the time machine, and 200 years ago, and you're hanging out some city, town, doesn't matter, and you go, "Hey, man, check this out. In the future, you'll be able to jump in your car at midnight and drive 20 miles and get a cheeseburger and drive home and eat it in bed in a half an hour." And they would be like, "Man, that's some black magic sorcery, right? Get that out of that's impossible. That'll never happen." You do it today, and I do it, and we order Uber Eats on our cell phone because it's easy.
Yeah.
And ET getting here from 10,000 light years away, they're not doing it because they're traveling for 10,000 years at the speed of light. No, they're doing it because it's easy, and they do it like that. And that would have to be it. We just don't have the level of the capacity of understanding how that would get done, just like somebody 200 years ago would not have the capacity of understanding a microwave oven. No.
Sure.
And that's where I'm at. I truly believe that breaking the laws of physics as we understand today. We don't understand everything. No. And we will be a completely different civilization in 10,000 years.
I hope so. I mean, I hope that is true. I mean, I think the universe will be a much more interesting place if we can have faster than light travel. It does seem that there are pretty hard constraints upon that. There's some theoretical ways of possibly getting around it, but it doesn't mean, even if we have 1 million years of research, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to pan out. We can certainly hope that it will pan out, and it would be the ideal situation. But right now, I'm kind of in the RV camp, saying that we have to go by the physics that we know rather than just inventing physics. And we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, well, the problem with that, and this is where I would argue with Avi and win, okay, is this. The speed of light is a fixed number that has been agreed upon by the science community so their math would work and stay consistent. Einstein's own theories, both in special and general, state that everything is in flux. Time is stretched, everything is stretched and compressed throughout the universe. That's it. And the speed of light changes all over the place. So you can't have the same speed of light in different parts of the universe. It doesn't work that way. But that would also mess with the math. So everybody's equations won't work. So they had to come up with a number and agree on that and use that speed of light figure in all of the math to make the math work. But the speed of light changes all over the universe, and any mass and gravity is going to change and bend light and change its speed. That's a fact. So so that's to say that something can exceed the speed of light or not. What speed? What speed are you talking about?
Well, you have to warp space and time if you want to exceed the speed of light. And then there's issues with causality, which is something I think that's difficult to get around. But I'm with you though. I'm with you. I'd hold out hope for faster than light travel. I think it would be amazing. I don't want to wait 200 years to get to something that's only 4 light years away. I want to be there in a jiffy.
But and that's why I just when when somebody says, and I've seen it myself, but when somebody says, well, it appeared in the sky and then it was gone. Well, that says a lot to me. I used to be like you, right? Nuts and bolts, how could a craft travel at near the speed of light for 1 million years? Why would you do that? It just doesn't make, no, they don't do that.
Yeah.
No, they take a step, Mick. They go, whoop, whoop, and it's galaxy to galaxy. It's something like that. It's that easy. It's not some crazy difficult thing and they've got it figured out. That's what I'm convinced of, and that's why we see things appear and disappear so quickly.
That would be great. Yeah, I'd love that to be true. But yeah, I'm an evidence-driven person, and the evidence that I've seen of the things in our, on our planet, I hear the stories, and the stories are very compelling, but I don't think we've got the physical evidence yet to back those stories up. So I think we have to be open to the idea that some of those stories are based on misperceptions and aren't necessarily representative of some advanced technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I had one last question, and I can't remember. One last thing. I wanted to talk about David Fravor for a second.
All right.
The 3 videos, I've never bought into, so I'm not talking about the 3 videos. But what I'm very interested in is Fravor and others say what they have seen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very confused with that because it doesn't match up with the videos at all. The videos, no, I don't. But Fravor is a professional military pilot, and for him to say it went, and was gone, I'm very, very confused with that. Now, if it's our own technology, okay, all right, okay, we have it. But that part of it separates me from the videos. I put the videos in a box and I put them on the shelf. What do you think Fravor saw?
I don't know what Fravor saw. I have a number of hypotheses, but I think that there's a number of issues just right out of the bag with Fravor's account, and that's that there are differences between the different people's accounts. There are 3 people we know who have given reports. There were 4 people there. So there's Fravor, there's Alex Dietrich, who was a junior pilot at the time, being trained. Her backseater was a senior, Jim Slay. And then there was another person who was the backseater on Fravor's aircraft. And they've all given these accounts, and they all kind of differ somewhat. They all kind of agree on the general idea that they saw some kind of tic-tac shaped object that was flying around. But the way they describe it, especially if you look at their earliest descriptions of it, the early interviews, they're quite varied about what they saw. And some of it doesn't actually make any physical sense. Like Alex Dietrich talks about seeing an object flying across a region of the water that was white water in a way that just basically couldn't have happened. It would have taken like a thousandth of a second or something from the speed she was traveling at. And it didn't seem to make any sense. But the biggest thing was this discrepancy between the times. Like Commander Fravor describes this almost leisurely encounter where they fly up. They go to this, what they call merge plot, where the radar guy tells them, Kevin Day presumably tells them, you've arrived at where the object is, you should be seeing it. And they look around, they don't see anything. They're expecting to see it at 20,000 feet. And then after a bit, they see something over there. And then they look at it and they see it moving around. Fravor decides, I'm going to go down and take a look. Alex Dietrich says she'll stay up high. Fravor, goes down. And he says very specifically that he went down slowly. He took his time.
A circle.
Yeah.
Right.
He's doing a descending circle. I mean,
right.
You are flying in a straight line or you're flying in a circle. So you have to keep it in sight. So he's flying around this thing, going down towards it. And he sees it rise up. And then they circle each other for a while, and he flies across, and then it disappears. And he describes this, and he made a big point of saying that he went down slowly because if you go down too fast, you end up running into the ocean. And so he said the entire thing, from merge plot to the object flying away, took 5 minutes, about 5 minutes. And he says that all 4 pilots had eyeballs on this object for 5 minutes. Now, Alex Dietrich tells a similar story. Like, they fly up there, they go merge plot, they see the thing, she looks down, they see the thing, flies off across the white water, Fravor zips down, flies around, and the object disappears. She says the entire encounter took between 8 and 10 seconds, which is impossible to reconcile with a 10-minute encounter. So there's this huge discrepancy between the two accounts. And they're both saying from merge plot to the object disappearing. She was quite specific on that. And I asked her, several times if it was from the merge plot thing. And Fravor says that the first time he saw it, the second he saw it, Alex Dietrich's backseater was talking over the radio, "Do you see this thing?" So the start of the story line up exactly. It's merge plot. They both see it at the same time. The thing disappearing is at the end of the story. And yet Fravor says it took 5 minutes. Dietrich says it took 8 to 10 seconds. It doesn't really make any sense.
What do you, and they saw something, right?
Yeah, they saw a white object. They saw a white tic-tac shaped object. But then, even there's differences. Like Jim Slay, in his account that he gave to the SCU, which they've released snippets of these accounts, but they've not released the whole thing. And I think the reason they've not released the whole thing is that it contains more discrepancies. I think there's more differences in the account. But even in the bits they released, Jim Slay says that he looked down at this thing and he saw that the surface of it was shimmering like a heat haze, which is a very specific thing to say. And all the while, this is supposedly in the 8 to 10 seconds or the 5 minutes, depending on who you believe. But he was in the same plane as Alex Dietrich. He says he's looking down at this thing and he could see a heat haze. David Fravor didn't see any heat haze, and he was much closer to it. So again, you've got this kind of radical difference in accounts. Now, they all saw the same thing at some point, but they all seem to have very different experiences of it, and very different perceptions and memories.
Do you think that's typical of like any car accident where you're going to get 5 different eyewitness descriptions of
but
the same car accident, but the directions of the cars were different?
But I think what that means is that we can say there's the basics of it is that they saw a white object in the sky and they eventually lost sight of it. What actually happens in between and the descriptions of it, I think, are perhaps not as accurate as you would hope for, because you have the big discrepancies like 5 minutes and 10 seconds. You would expect a military pilot, trained observer, to be able to you should be able to they should match. If one person's seeing a heat haze shimmering on the surface of the object and someone who's much closer doesn't see it, who knows what else that might differ between their accounts. So yeah, I definitely think that they saw a white object, like this flying around doing something, but it perhaps didn't do the amazing maneuvers that they thought it did, and perhaps when it disappeared, they just simply lost sight of it. If you read the earliest reports, it said lost sight of the object in the mist. Which is in the haze. I think it was the haze, because the ocean's pretty hazy over that area. But now we've got slightly different accounts over the years. So I think they probably saw something like a drone or a balloon or an aircraft or something like that of some sort, probably some military thing, possibly something released from that white water, which was probably something like a submarine. There was a submarine there, and it could be something that they just weren't in the need to know, so they didn't get told about it. But I don't know. I'm sure lots of other people will say different things. There's a big difference in the stories between the kind of enlisted men, the guys on the ship, and the officers, the people like Fravor. Fravor says that all this talk about Men in Black coming in and taking the tapes is all nonsense. Then there's big differences between the tales of people like Kevin Day. Kevin Day will say that he heard Fravor screaming in terror over the radio, And he says that Fravor told him that the Tic Tac did a barrel roll around his plane, none of which actually is anything that Fravor will tell you anything about. So with all these differences, I think it's difficult to get a clear picture of what actually happened, other than they saw something.
Now, what about and I appreciate it, because I'm just as confused about this. I've listened to everybody. I've listened to Chad Underwood. I've listened to every angle on this, and spoken to many of them myself, and I'm just a little confused. But I don't think it has anything to do with the videos. That I think is muddying up the waters, literally. But then there is the other aspect to this whole 80,000 feet to sea level in a fraction of a second, where and you understand the basics of physics and compression. That would have been a gnarly disturbance on the water. That would have been a tsunami.
It would have been like Arvi was talking about. Plasma would have formed. It would have been super bright. It would have been like a giant explosion and like a lightning bolt.
So do you think that part was an anomaly on the radar, or do you think that there was a physical 80,000 feet to sea level travel?
I think there was something going on with the radar. They had received an update, as I recall, to the software for the radar, the system. They did some reboots of it, because initially they thought it was radar glitches. They were seeing these things, groups of 5 things just drifting down the screen, not very physical types of things, just things that kind of look like noise or some kind of radar glitch. And they, eventually became convinced that they were real things. And the story goes that they sent a plane out to look for them. But I think the most likely thing for the ones that apparently dropped from 80,000 to 28,000 or 28,000 to 0, whatever that story varies as well. Kevin Day has given different numbers on that. I think those were probably just radar glitches. It's this stuff like the radar can, when the ship tilts, the radar can bounce off the ocean, and you get these multipath differences and interferences with side lobes and whatnot. I don't understand the whole thing, but I've been told that you can get these sudden changes in altitude of a target by like reflections and things like that. And the captain of the ship didn't seem very concerned about it. He was shown these things on the radar, and he was just like, just looks like, I don't know, something. Maybe it's like cirrus clouds or something.
That's for me, that is one of the biggest things about this entire case with the Nimitz. I believe that those 2 planes saw something. I'm convinced of that. I don't think that Fravor's making it up. I just don't, or imagining it, or any of that, or it was a plasma projection, light thing from some new defense, whatever. No, I don't believe it. He saw something. But the problem that I have with this is that this incident was written up. This is a battle group. This is a carrier group with all kinds of surface vessels and subsurface vessels involved. Apparently, everybody was talking about it and everybody saw it. But the entire paper trail is gone. And I would have thought that it's a big enough case that we would see that. We would see the incident report, and we would see the breakdown, and all of this is missing. That's the part that I'm not very comfortable with.
Yeah, well, what we do have is a report. I think it's from the UAP task force, or perhaps from one of the other working groups, where they discuss this case, and they say at the end of it, they give the description, which is basically, kind of an overview, that it was a smooth white object with 46 feet in length, blah blah blah, and they said, although the debriefs of aircrew and other personnel within the strike group validated the event, there was very little data to support technical analysis. So they're saying they just don't have any real information on the case other than the eyewitness accounts and the accounts of people who say that they saw things. And there's only so much you can do with eyewitness accounts, unfortunately. The fact that they don't have radar information means that probably either it's classified because it's something like a vulnerability in the radar, like there was something wrong with the radar, or it was being spoofed, or it was a spoofing test or something like that, or there just wasn't anything there.
Well, the military is all about paperwork. That's it. That's all you do. That's all you do is paperwork. And something like this that went on for a couple of weeks, this wasn't a one-day thing.
It was actually there was
the Fravor incident.
Yeah,
they knew where they were going, and they knew that they were what they were flying into, because they were leveling out at 30. If you go with that, everything that has been presented, that they have been following this for quite a while. This was
it hadn't been doing anything interesting in the previous days. Every single incident up to that point, according to Kevin Day, was just these dots moving down the screen.
That's right. That's right.
Fives. And then there was this one day of loads of action, like Fravor goes out, they see the things drop down very rapidly to the surface of the ocean. They see it appear at the cap point, and the men in black come in and take the tapes, and then there's video, and then then that's it. Then they return to port. So there was these few days of radar glitches, and then there was one day of a flurry of excitement, and then it was over. So,
but my point, Mick, is to go one way or another with this case. It's in the paperwork. And there isn't any. And I don't buy that. There's no way that you don't have, after every single run that you do, you get down and you debrief. You're sitting in that where you are debrief. That's all they do. Everything is rehearsal, training. Written, write up, this, analyze all of it, and in this case, something like this, where there is tra-la-la, nothing, that's the part that I don't buy. And it would take this case one way or another, and we don't have it to.
Well, there's one piece of paperwork we do know exists, which are Alex Dietrich's notes that she made at the time. And she says she'll release them at some point, but she's kind of like she's been having a lot of stuff going on in her life, and she's in storage. She had a flood, and she has some medical issues, so she hasn't been able to get to it. But I'm hopeful that sometime in the next couple of years, she'll be able to find the time to dig them out, and that might help. It might not, we don't know, but there's definitely something that's notes that were taken out at the time are going to be the most valuable. You took your notes when that thing whizzed over the head, and you took them immediately because as soon as you take the notes, it's down. It's that you've made a record. But if you leave it until a few days later, you're going to forget what you saw. So that would be good. And there probably are other things in the archives somewhere, but it's all classified.
Yeah. Amazing.
Probably not for good reason.
Mick, thank you, man. Thank you for not only doing what you do. Again, you center me, but just thank you for coming on tonight and taking the time. It was just an amazing conversation. And thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing. All right.
Thank you for having me.
I look forward to the next time, and we'll have something. I'm going to send. I've got some more video, so I'm going to send it over to you. And let's do a breakdown of that too as well. Okay.
Sounds good.
I'll do that over the weekend. Have a good time. Thank you so much, Mick.
Good night.
There you go. Mick West, and very special Friday night presentation here of Fade to Black. Thank you, Mick. And that's what you do. You just talk, everybody. You just talk. Yeah, talk through it. Obviously, we don't see eye to eye. We don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to agree on nothing. It doesn't matter. You just have a conversation. That's what you do, and that's what this community needs more of. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great, safe, amazing weekend. I'll see everybody on Monday. I'll announce everything we've got next week. It's going to be amazing. So we'll make those announcements over the weekend. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Wow, I've had the craziest busy day today, but I got through it. Whoo, man, I've been up since 5 a.m. Fade to Black is produced by Hill J. Palm Renee and Michelle Freed. Thank you to Dennis and Kevin, Webmasters Through the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJ Sarah for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Have a great weekend, everybody. Be safe. Go Beckley Teppy.